Hello everyone, and welcome to the Architecture Foundation of Oregon's 2020 Honored Citizen. This year, we're honoring some of Oregon's truly unsung heroes, our amazing teachers. Architects in Schools has been operating for over 5 decades, and over that time, we are lucky enough to count thousands of teachers as our partners in educating the children of Oregon. We're going to talk more about them tonight, and you'll even get to hear from some of them as they tell some of their stories. But know that when you're donating to support AFO, you're also donating in support of Oregon's teachers. We're coming to you from Place Studio here in beautiful Northwest Portland. We're here not just because we all needed a break from our virtual workspaces, but where else in Portland can you find Ducati's original art and fantastic people like Carol and Mauricio Villarreal. Carol and Mauricio, do you want to say a few words about Place?
Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you.
It's wonderful you're able to join us and welcome AFO community to your home.
Cheers! Thanks to Carol and Mauricio and the rest of the Place team for letting the AFO crew come and crash your office. Your support really means the world to us. So tonight we have a wonderful event put together for you. We have some music, we have some fun, and hopefully at the end of it, we'll be reminded that we are all one community. We're also here to all support the AFO, and to help with that, we've put together a silent auction with some amazing items. Let's take a look at them now. So bidding will close on these items at 5:30, and at 6 p.m. we'll announce the winners on Facebook Live. But don't worry, we'll send the winners an email as well. There are lots of downsides to hosting a virtual event in 2020, but one of the upsides is that all of you get to participate from the comfort of your own home, and you might even be wearing pajamas. But if there's one thing that can really help us get in the honored citizen spirit, it's having a drink. So, to get a little help with that, we're going to go over to Bend, Oregon, and our friends from 5 Fusion. Joe Kim is going to lead us in a demonstration of how to make a truly delicious cocktail.
Hi, I'm Chef Joe Kim of 5 Fusion. This is Josh, our head bartender. In front of us, we have a few of our cocktails that kind of give a little bit of a wow factor. We have to start with a good cocktail, but then we like to do something to give a little spin to it to make it memorable. We've all had a great cocktail before, but do we remember where we had it or what it was? Maybe, maybe not. But some of the cocktails we have in front of you I think are kind of unforgettable. This is our tiki cocktail. It's actually a hot winter cocktail to make you feel like you're on a beach somewhere with a tiki lava show. This is our smoky old Frenchman. This is a French whiskey, French Cointreau that we then smoke, and the smoke remains in the glass while you're drinking it. You can either sip it through the straw or drink it out of the bowl. Another cocktail that we have is the lava lamp. So this cocktail has a faux caviar that we make bouncing around in there that sips through the straw somewhat like a bubble tea, but gives that appearance of a lava lamp. Another cocktail that we have is the Tokyo Melon. So this is a Midori-based cocktail, a little lighter on the alcohol. Rosemary sprig, rosemary and melon pair very well together. So you're going to get that aroma as you drink it through the straw that's kind of hidden in that rosemary branch. Now I'm going to turn you over to Josh. He's going to make the cocktail that he designed for you with the Freeland gin.
How are we all doing, guys? My name's Josh Behrens, head bartender at 5 Fusion. Very nice gin here out of Portland, Freeland gin. We're going to start out with 2 ounces of that. And then a cherry blossom aperitif. Do 1.5 ounces of that. And these are house-made cherry blossom bitters. A few dashes of those. Stir it up. Strain into a coupe glass. And garnish with cherry blossom, of course. It's a nice little pink color to it, and really features the gin, where you can taste it, and then it has a subtle sweet finish. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Joe and the Five Fusion team. If there's one thing we've learned from 2020, it's the importance of a good cocktail or a good mocktail. So the next time you find yourself in Bend, you should head over to Five Fusion. They have a fantastic menu along with the great drinks that we just saw demonstrated. So as we were putting together this event tonight, our AFO Resources Committee and staff was trying to brainstorm ideas of ways we could make this event feel not only engaging, but also inspiring. We all agreed that music was something that was really helping us cope in what is a challenging time. Thanks to the generous support of one of AFO's board members, we are very pleased to share with you a true local talent. Emmanuel Honreid, who goes by the name Henri, is a trained professional opera singer. He is one of the only Black opera singers in the Pacific Northwest, and when he joined the Portland Opera in 2014, he became one of their youngest members. You may have seen his viral video of singing the national anthem on stations here in local Portland, or on the Kelly Clarkson Show, Good Morning America, or the BBC. A few weeks ago, Henri came to the Place Studios and we filmed him performing one of his original songs. So here, performing Livin' in the Light, Henri.
My name is Henri, and thank you so much for having me here with you guys today. Some of you guys may recognize me from being just that random person that walks down the street and is singing, or you may recognize me maybe on television as that guy walking down the street and singing, because I am sometimes both. I'm just a normal dude that enjoys world music and singing, and it's a part of the soul, and it's a part of building and community, and also part of architecture, which is what we're here for today. And so major part of what I do is simply just based around sound and having sound simply wash over people in certain architectural spaces. And one thing that I absolutely love to do is travel around the city and find different spaces with great acoustics. That's totally my thing. And so as I was one day walking down the street during quarantine, I had lost all work, and I thought to myself, okay, well, what are you gonna do with this time? And so as I began to process how much I lost, I realized, okay, how can you gain through this time? What can you do to center yourself? And what are the fundamental core values? If everything is lost, if all of your titles are lost, what is the foundation of who you are and what you love? What is the foundation that you've built yourself on all these years? And that was sound. That was music. That was my voice. And so I decided to leave my house. I was walking down the street and I would find these really cool alcoves with really great acoustics in one space, one alcove here in a garage, one space over near a hotel or something of that nature, and I just begin to just roar with this big so you hear this like weird sound, this spooky sound that's going down the street. Yeah, that was me. And as I kept on singing in the streets, I ran into this girl, Madison, which I didn't know at the time, but someone else was singing in the streets. And I was like, hey, would you mind if I join you? So I joined her, and she says yes. And we sing the national anthem together because she was already singing. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get done, and I'm thinking to myself, if this couldn't go anywhere, but just in case, here's my handle, here's my Instagram, have a good life. And then I get this random phone call from PSU, and it says, hey, we love the video we love the performance that you just did. And I said, I haven't performed in forever. I've been just singing in the streets and maybe at a protester here and there. And I got this thing, this video, and it said, commencement ceremony, class of 2020 at PSU, and I thought, oh gosh, I've totally like video bombed this girl singing. This is the worst, you know? And so as we begin to watch over an hour or two, these numbers begin to start floating up, and people are like, hey, we love this video, it made us cry. And I'm like, I don't know why it's making you cry, but thanks for feeling the emotions. And then all of a sudden the numbers begin to go up, and about 1 million views came in the first day. All of a sudden it moves from Channel 2 to NPR to ABC News to Good Morning America, then all the way whoop up to BBC News. And in the process of doing all that, I had to come out with something. So my team and I, we created this song called Living in the Light. Living in the light, I'm stuck on you in the light. I'm stuck on you, stuck on you. I don't wanna be living in the light. I was denied. My soul never burned so damn bright in your light. My soul never burned so damn bright. I don't wanna be living in the light. Living in the lights. My soul never burned so bright in your light. My soul never burned so damn bright. I don't wanna be living in the light. I don't wanna be in your. I don't wanna be kept. I don't wanna be in your. I don't wanna be. I don't wanna be living in light. I'm stuck on you like a honeycomb. I'm stuck on you like a honeycomb. I don't wanna be living in the light. Thank you.
We'll be sharing another performance by Henri later in the program, so be sure to stick around. So as we're gathered virtually here tonight in communities across the state, I'm reminded that none of this would be possible without our fantastic corporate sponsors. We want to share our sincere gratitude to all the corporations and people who have stepped up to support our work. Thank you once again. So when the world looks back on 2020, I'm sure that there will be many words we use to describe it. Surreal, inspiring, heartbreaking, and of course, the much overused term unprecedented. However, for all its challenges, 2020 has not derailed AFO from its mission. I am proud to report that we have managed to pivot and deliver the majority of our program virtually. Many of you attended our July happy hour for our Hatfield Scholarship recipient, Bethany Woods, or maybe you and your children participated in the Architects in Schools summer camp. You might even know a middle school or high school student who participated in hip-hop architecture from the comfort of their own home. This is a testament to the amazing work of our staff who was able to successfully execute this pivot. Susan Myers, Kim Knowles, and Candace Agahan. It is a deep privilege to get to work with a team who is as versatile as they are. 2020 has also been a wake-up call for us here in Portland, but also nationally. This summer, as demonstrations erupted, expressing fear, anger, outrage, grief over the murder of George Floyd, it was impossible for us not to notice. If there is one thing that these demonstrations made clear, it's that the voices of minority communities of color have been silenced for too long. And as many people have pointed out, this is true in the AEC community as well. What I find inspiring, however, is that so many of our firms and our member organizations have stepped up to do something about it. Whether it's supporting the founding of an Oregon chapter of the National Association of Minority Architects, or supporting youth programs like Your Street, Your Voice and Architects in Schools, or investing time and money in mentoring young college students of color so that we can close the opportunity gap in the AEC community. You all have stepped up in some truly amazing ways. It is our mandate as an organization to support you all in your hard work. Our goal is to amplify your efforts and to take the message of equity and access to communities across the state. Your support helps us do that. AFO exists because we are a community that believes that Oregon is stronger when more people participate in the process of creating our world. We are an organization that is made up of members, but we are deeply rooted in the goals of our communities. This, in many ways, is at the heart of our Architects in Schools curriculum. And here to tell us a little bit more about that is one of the people in charge of that program, AFO Associate Director, Kim Knowles.
Architects in Schools would not be the successful program it is today without the support and investment of our amazing partner teachers. This has been a year of immense challenges. Yet in any given year, teachers are asked to shoulder incredible responsibility, often without thanks. Tonight, we want to say thank you to all of the teachers who have participated in our programs over the years and to highlight some of their work. We here at AFO are in awe of the extraordinary support that teachers are giving to our next generation of Oregonians. Teachers help students learn to think for themselves, solve problems creatively, and to reach their potential. Now we'd like for you to hear from some of our honored citizens, Oregon's teachers.
Some ways I've kept students engaged and learning is first just creating a classroom community. We often spend the first week working on that while we're physically together, and when we're online, it's even more important. So we took the first 2 weeks to really dive in and get to know one another, to make connections with each other, to learn about each other and each other's lives. And having those connections helps students stay present and engaged, and really is a great jumping off point to have conversations with each other. So I feel like really spending the time to make our online classroom community has been very, very important, and one way that has really kept students engaged. Another way is just, having this mindset that we're all in this new adventure. Teachers have never taught like this before. Students have never really learned like this before. So we're all in this together, and it's a team effort. So I think that really helps with their learning mindset, knowing that we're all trying this for the very first time together. So if things don't go well the first time, it's okay. We're going to keep trying. Also, this generation of students is really tech savvy. So for a lot of them, being on Chromebooks and using online platforms is really something that comes naturally to them. It's one of their strengths. So I, as a teacher, play towards that, really allowing them to use that strength with technology and what they know to help guide their learning. So in a lot of ways, being at home and learning online is something that comes very naturally to them.
So we have really incorporated design thinking and learning in a lot of different ways with our kids. And I think one of the biggest messages in design thinking and learning is that there's not one single path and there's not one right answer, and that really failure happens a lot of times. And from failure, you can get a new idea, a new opportunity, a new iteration of something. And I think that our kids, probably far more so than us as adults, are pretty flexible with that. And so they're pretty forgiving when things don't go well. And, I think they see a lot of opportunity and can use that idea of design thinking and design learning to really just continuously make change and improvement in their environment and in our learning and in this process, and not getting stuck in the frustration of things.
I think design learning has helped in distance learning. Some of the things that I love about participating in AIS, well, first of all, working with Karen Lang, we've been paired up for the last 4, maybe even 5 years, and I look forward to it every year. And for my third graders, the program is often just the very best part of third grade for them. So, some of the things they engage in is collaboration. So they're collaborating on a design with their team, and that often involves a lot of compromise, which is a bitter pill for some kids to swallow, but they get it and they get used to it, and they have to coordinate tasks and then communicate in multiple ways. They maybe are sketching things on paper for their team, verbally sharing ideas. They have to listen and take turns. And so in the distance learning environment, that communication is challenging. You're communicating through a screen or through assignments on a digital platform. they're having to take turns in our morning meeting, or not our morning meetings, but in our classroom meetings in general, our whole group meetings, which can take a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience to wait, especially when we're not together in a physical space, which, you know, helps promote engagement, just physically being together. But so that patience is important. And so I think that design learning helps develop stamina for these things. And so those are some of the benefits.
During this time of distance learning, one of the main challenges I have is making sure that everything I do for my students is equitable. Again, I'm in a rural community, and so not every one of my students has access to the same thing. One student might have a pair of scissors and extra paper at home, and another student might not have extra paper at home or even a pair of scissors. And so trying to find ways to make sure that they get those materials is really important. I'm lucky that the district I work in has set up busing routes so that the bus drivers actually take materials to the kids once a week for the next week's activities. So this week we're putting construction paper and packets together to help us do a hands-on activity for our math lesson next week. So those are some of those ways that we're trying to get around making sure everybody has access to the same thing, and it's something that's going to be engaging and positive.
Thinking about architects in schools in Oregon, I just want to put in there, I've been doing this program, I looked it up this morning, since 2012. I started doing it with a friend here in town who's an architect, Heidi, and she had approached me, and she had already done it a couple of years, and we were friends outside of school. So I said, sure, sounds great. So that was my introduction to it. Way back in 2012, I was teaching 5th grade. I think we brought it to 30 kids that year. And now the last year when we did it with all the 4th grades here at Miller Elementary School, over 100 kids we brought it to. So it's really just blown up. So a big kudos to Heidi and to the Architects in Schools program. And once again, I always say my job as an educator in elementary school, I think, is just to get these kids hooked on one or two things that they're going to want to really explore further when they go to middle school and high school. And I think design and architecture and buildings and structures and engineering is perfect, and lots of kids do gravitate towards it. So it's made me like check out new buildings and new bridges and new structures, and just really think that that's very cool. So I hope that I can engage more of these youth to do that. And I was just talking to some parents about it the other day, my students' parents, but just saying we do the Architects in Schools program, and our kids get to be featured artists at the first Friday in Bend, Oregon. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a nice little tip of the hat to the kids, and once again, another way to hook them on learning and being lifelong learners.
Thank you so much to all the teachers who took time out of your busy schedules to help us with that video. Teachers are often the ones who are at the forefront of innovation and change. And they're also the ones who have to deal with a lot of problems head on, and they do so with dedication and passion. One such group of educators is the team behind KairosPDX. As a school, KairosPDX serves mostly minority youth here in Portland. We have collaborated with them on our Architects in Schools program, and we have found that the curriculum well aligns with their goal of creating compassionate, creative, confident leaders in their students. A few weeks ago, I sat down with Zalika Gardner and Marcia Williams, two of the school's founders, to discuss their experience here in the educational community, and also how we can become better leaders by listening differently and leading with compassion. I'm so pleased to be sitting here in person socially distanced, but in person, with two of the founders of KairosPDX, Zalika Gardner and Marcia Williams. And we're going to be chatting today about the state of education in our current climate, which seems to be changing, hourly, and also about learning and the massive paradigm shifts and how that impacts the creation of the community, which is something that all of us are experiencing differently than we have in the past. Kairos is also a school that has participated in the Architects in Schools program, and they are, hopefully, we're going to get them to participate again this year. But they are fellow practitioners of project-based learning, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, Zalika, Marcia, tell me a little bit about Kairos and how you all came to found this school.
It was 5 of us co-founders that founded the educational nonprofit. And actually, if you talk to us, we all kind of have our different stories. For mine, I was a transplant, and I was definitely on a 2-year plan, because it's like, 2 years I'm out. But my husband took a job here, and when we got, my background actually is in health services research. And so when I started, we got pregnant, we were expecting, I started researching and looking at the data and was floored, to be honest. And literally, for me, that's where it started. I was like, okay, well, if I'm having a kid and we're living in Portland, we gotta figure this out. So for me, it was really more the impetus around just my research background and learning. And then I literally just started telling people. So I was my circle, which was smaller at that time. And so one of our other co-founders was like, oh, I know somebody that also wants to start a school. You guys need to meet. And so that was Kali. And Kali actually knew Zalika and Karan, our other 2 co-founders. And so Kairos means a supreme moment in time, a special moment in time. And when we actually put in our application for the charter, we at the time had 75 years of collective experience.
Wow.
And so we talk about how Kairos, when you talk about how Kairos came to be, it came to be by the collectivism of people coming together with their different levels of expertise to bring forth a vision for something that, I think started with all of us having our own individual needs, but at the end of the day, it's what this community needed. It's what the state of Oregon needed. It's what the city needed. And, while we kind of have the vision, none of it would take place without that collectivism. And I mean, a huge shout out to our board. We still have a lot of founding board members today. We have a working board who have been active. And really, we can't talk about the founding of Kairos without talking about the community. We had the vision, and we had people come alongside who were like, yeah, we think this is important. Yeah, we think this is needed. And Kairos has grown out of really a community need for saying and standing up and saying, this is not okay. How we've served our Black and brown kids in education in this state and in this city is not okay. And we can do better, and we will do better. And so when I think about who we are who we are because of the community that has uplifted this need and been a voice for, what we talk about as our homegrown future leaders of Portland. So,
well, I think it actually segues really nicely into something that our organizations really have in common, which is our Architects in Schools program focuses mainly on 3rd through 5th graders. And we're big believers in starting that kind of project-based critical thinking, strategic thinking, design thinking, as we call it in the architecture community, starting that young and really building that foundation. And I know Kairos has a similar kind of mindset with starting early. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we talk all the time at Kairos about the fact that we're building brains. That is what we're doing. We're in the work of building brains. It's built on neuroscience. Nothing that we do is accidental. It's fun, but not accidental. It's very intentional, and it is around giving children the opportunity to play and imagine and design, and then listening to them as they're doing that, because the ideas that come forth are worthy of more discussion and worthy of awe and amazement. And we often skip over that. The most creative people on the earth are 3 and 4 years old, right?
Yes,
and the most curious, right? And then often once kids hit school, it's like a reverse process of interest and engagement and curiosity and imagination. And we wanted to come directly the opposite. We wanted them to grow in their curiosity and their engagement in learning. I often say too, like I want our kids to have like an addiction to that feeling of learning. Like it feels so good when you're involved in something that matters and you're hitting big questions and you're bringing your own thinking to that question, and adults are listening to you and your classmates are listening to you and the words that you are putting out into the world, because it's a risk, right? Learning is a risk. And so the way that we manage that risk is to really value what children and the adults have put out into the world. And we feel like that practice then builds their brains in a particular way that allows them to be innovators and leaders and change makers in their world, to believe that their voice does have a place because they have hit school, and from the very beginning of school, that has been the practice around them and around what learning means.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about building a brain. First of all, it's a fascinating concept to begin with, but the way you talk about the methods of building a brain, that is, I think many people in the architecture and building community would say that's exactly how you build a building, is you sit there and you ask people for different opinions and you build it together. It is a collaborative process. And that's one of the things that I think I really have been the most energized by as I have learned about Kairos. And it's just this idea that it is a collective effort, the collective effort to found it, but also this collective responsibility of tackling this problem together. And I think that's really inspiring. And I think we need some inspiration. A lot has changed for us here. I think that's safe to say, both in Oregon. Portland certainly has been at the center of a lot of these discussions and protests, and rightly so. But it's also happened at a national scale. How have you guys as leaders at Kairos, knowing that you have this very impactful sphere of influence, how have you adapted to the rapidly changing world, just from teaching, but also like how have you as a community kind of pivoted and adapted?
We have had to, like everyone, really think about what does it mean to take care of each other? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to take care of each other when the world is like expressing value for you, and what does it mean to take care of each other when the world is expressly expressing a lack of value for you? And how do we approach that and have conversations about that as young children, with young children? And how do we support families who maybe want to have those conversations, but are now thrust into it in a way that no one was really expecting around, around Black lives, around worth, around equity, around social justice, in its various layers and forms. And we talk about ways of being versus things to do, right? And ways of being is in that category of things like empathy, right? Like how do we build and become aware of what things are blocking our empathy for others, whether they agree or disagree with our position, and how we manage compassion within that context. And children understand how to connect. They understand that when someone is hurting, you want to give them a hug. They understand that crying or that hurting or that feeling left out is the same crying and hurting and feeling left out that they themselves experience. So our work in this time period of sort of distance and remote is to connect as closely as we can, first of all, on a daily basis, and then come back over and over and over to how are we empathetic, how are we compassionate, how are we connecting to other human beings, especially across difference, be that skin color, be that ideology, be that economics, like whatever that difference may be, because again, we're building brains.
Yeah.
So how are we building brains that their first instinct is into empathy and compassion?
Absolutely, and I think that speaks to what you were saying of instead of action, ways of being. And I think that's a really salient point. Instead, action feels very concrete and very is sort of planned, right? But a way of being allows that fluidity. It allows that flexibility to be able to say, like, yeah, business, we are not in business as usual territory, but I am going to lead with empathy and lead with compassion. And I think that is where, you're right, like that's where change starts to happen. And this is a moment where we can use that use that way of being to really make some fundamental changes that are profoundly long overdue. So it's exciting to hear how you all put this into practice, because I think it's something that all of us can learn from. So a number of the firms here in Portland and across the state work on building schools, and they work on building learning environments. As an industry, like, how do you see, how can they support meaningful change in the community?
We know how much, like, just from the research that shows, and like the environment that a child enters into, how much that has an impact on their learning. And so as you're creating these spaces, to your point, like really thinking about, there might even be small enhancements that can be done within schools. Like, so it's really, you know, there are, you know, I've heard of so many different organizations, and we've been blessed to experience a lot of different organizations with passion projects. And so there's always opportunities to do passion projects where it might literally be just going in and, you know, taking a day and redesigning a space or redesigning a classroom. Or there's always those opportunities to figure out if there's a way to partner within your community, within maybe some buildings that have been distressed. There's a lot that people can do within, like I said, if you start where you are and see where are your systems of influence and where are the places that you want to invest your time and energy and effort, and then getting people alongside. Because there's something about that collective pool, when you feel like it's a value and you put your time and effort into it, the people that are around you who are watching that will want to too. And so I think this idea of, like, you know, thinking about passion projects, thinking about opportunities for schools that have, you know, just have historically not been served from a facility standpoint and a design standpoint in the way that we know could optimize their learning and just ability to build their brains, it would definitely be a place to start.
Yeah. And the aesthetic is such an expression of worth and value also, right?
Wow.
Like when a student comes into a space that has been beautifully designed, you suddenly feel, oh, okay, I'm going to do great things here, right? And the converse is true as well. When you go into a space that has been neglected, you have to fight harder to find that feeling, right? Because there's been communicated how important this space and your learning is. And so, you know, there's opportunity in, I would imagine, every school everywhere to go in and take a little time and showcase the fact that you believe that it's time to invest in our young people. We talk about that often at Kairos, the fact that you are worthy of investment. We talk about, you know, children having been underserved, historically underserved for such a long period of time. But if we flip that, what has really happened is, like, one of our greatest resources has been squandered for generations, and they are worthy of all of our time and energy. They are a tremendous resource for this city, for this state, worthy of investment.
Yeah, that's a profound message, and I think actually a beautiful end point for us today. Thank you both for coming and having this conversation. I appreciate all the knowledge and the power and the enthusiasm and dedication that you are bringing to our city and our state. It really is truly inspiring, and I'm excited to keep learning from you all, and I'm excited to keep seeing what you do next. And I'm even more excited for AFO to be on your partnership team and to work and help however we can. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that I walked away from that discussion feeling excited, empowered, and inspired, and I hope you all do too. You can view the full interview online after the presentation. For the past 38 years, AFO has been the gracious beneficiary of outstanding member support, and we're asking for that support again, because our mission now is more relevant than ever. AFO gathers community members, professionals, teachers, and students from across the state and amplifies the message that the AEC field is a major force of good in this world. By coming together and leveraging our collective influence, we can truly be the change that we need to see in our communities. Our Hatfield program amplifies this message. Our Architects in Schools program amplifies this message. Our events and programming across the board amplifies this message. By supporting AFO tonight, You are saying that you believe in the power of the AEC community to really move the needle towards positive change. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to us, and it enables all of the good work that we do. Now, I promised one more performance from our fantastic local Portland opera singer, Henri, and I do not want to disappoint. So, to wrap up the evening, we have Henri performing Franz Schubert's classic hymn, Ave Maria.
Ave Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Maria, gratia plena, Ave, Ave Dominus, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus, fructus ventris, ventris tuae, Iesus. Ave Maria, Ave Maria, Mater Dei, ora, ora pro nobis, ora, ora pro nobis, ora, ora pro nobis, peccatoribus, in hora mortis, in mortis, mortis nostre, in hora, hora, hora mortis, in hora mortis nostre. Ave Maria, Amen, Amen. Thank you.